But basically the message here is laser on, reward center on. Laser off, so light off, reward center off, overfed mice. Okay, so here we go. Laser off, no. Okay, laser on, give me the food. There it goes, eating more. I don't know why I think it's a him. I'm just calling it a him. Eat. Reward center on, reward center off, reward center off. Nope, I don't want that. Nope, not for me. No, it's over here. No, I don't want that. Gross. Light on. Give me the food.
It's like instantaneous.
What's that? It's instantaneous.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I know, it's a powerful trash. So I found it when I was taking my fourth year class, and then I like to show it in my first year nutrition class too, and the students seem to really like this. Does anyone identify with this mouse? so like, and sometimes you want to ask yourself, is my light on? You know, is the light switch on? And it's just really, I want to show you that video to show how powerful that reward center is. Okay, so I'll give you another little view into the reward center. So basically in this study what they did, so these are brain scans. These are what we call axial sections of the brain, so like this, of the brain. And what you see in this brain scan is they are basically showing increased activity in certain centers in response to a stimulus. So what's a stimulus? They showed these people pictures of food, and they wanted to see more or less how the brains lit up. Okay? So in these individuals with obesity, okay, we can see some of the lighting up sections, and it might be hard to see, but a lot of these sections are those reward sections. And the lighting up was less so in the individuals that did not have obesity. And when I cancel out, the overlap between these two people, what I see in types of people, what I see is the individuals with obesity, they had more lighting up, again, in those reward centers, just based on seeing a picture of food. Again, giving more evidence that reward is often at play in obesity. Okay? So I have a question for you. Okay? Is wanting food the same thing as liking it? No. Oh, good. You've seen my presentation before then. Excellent. So wanting a food is something that the researchers differentiate between compared to liking food. Can anyone give me a difference? What's wanting food versus liking it? Yeah?
Just eating anything.
So just eating anything. So even without it like making you feel good, or you liking the taste of it. Okay? Yep.
Yeah, there's an absence of pleasure. Like
There's an
when you
absence
like it,
of-
you have pleasure. When you want it, it doesn't. You don't get pleasure.
It doesn't. So with the wanting, you don't get the pleasure from it. It's the wanting, the food-seeking behavior, which is also something we see in certain types of drug addiction as well. That wanting the drug is actually more forceful than actually liking the drug. And there's a person who knows really well what this feeling feels like, and I will let him tell it. What do you like doing best in the world, Pooh? And what did he answer? Well said, Pooh. What I like best, and then he had to stop and think, because although eating honey was a very good thing to do, there was a moment just before you began to eat it, which was better than when you were eating it. But he didn't know what it was called. What's it called? Anticipation. We would call it wanting. And wanting of food seems to drive food intake even more so than liking food. And we see that very much so in animal studies, but there are some human studies that also have driven this hypothesis. Okay? So is reward an intervention place? Hopefully, yes. Definitely. Excellent, good. So reward is an intervention place. So you'll notice my last topic is reward. I got 11 strategies that are in the reward department. Okay, so strategy number one, fat and carb-rich foods. So what I mean by that is foods that have a mixture of high fat and high carbs. These seem to drive reward, and in particular the wanting of food, more so than, for example, just fat or just carbs on their own, or protein. Does this sound about right? Yeah. And what's interesting is that really high fat and really high carb foods, that mixture, doesn't exist in nature. Except for in one place. Anyone know where? I think I heard it. It's in breast milk. Is that what you said? Yeah. So it's breast milk. That's the only other natural the only that I know of, nutritional source that is both high in fat and carbohydrates. All the rest of that high fat, high carb mix, that's the food industry. Why would the food industry do that? Yeah, they want you to eat more. Your stomachs are the food industry's nemesis. They want to push your stomachs as much as possible. They want to tamper with all this appetite stuff as much as possible, so we eat more, so they drive their profits. Now, I don't think everyone in the food industry is an evil person twiddling their mustache and whatnot, but it is capitalism, and it makes sense that they would make these types of foods. Plus, they tend to be cheaper to make and they last longer. Okay. What this slide is showing is they did a study and they gave people a certain amount of money that they could spend on food in this study, and the people would pay a lot more for the foods that were higher in the fat and carb combination. Okay? And what was happening in their brains as they were making that decision was in and around the reward centers. Okay? Even though they were unable to estimate actually how many calories were in those foods. They tended to underestimate how many calories were in the fat and carb sources, and underestimate how much was in the strictly sugary carb sources as well. Okay? So this is also easier said than done. These foods are delicious for a reason. I'm always one to focus on what I can eat instead of what I don't like to say what I can't eat. Actually, I don't like to say what I can and can't eat. But I like to focus on the types of foods that taste good, that are good for me, instead of the ones that are not so good for me. Okay, next one. Another strategy is to eat more mindfully. So to be aware of your food consumption patterns when they're occurring. So anyone here ever eat mindlessly? Another funny one. Where do you eat mindlessly?
In front of the TV.
Television? Computer? Work? Driving? I always think of the mindful picture I have in my head is when people go through McDonald's drive-thru, when I go through McDonald's drive-thru, and then you eat the burger, and then you have the fries in the bag right beside that you just you don't even think about it. It's like movie theater popcorn.
Yeah.
You don't even think about it. Okay, so being more aware of what's going in, and as I like to say to my students, if you're gonna eat a cheesecake, freaking eat that cheesecake. Think about it, enjoy it. If you've decided to eat it, great, but don't eat it so quickly that you don't even enjoy it. Take the time and savor it. Feel the texture. Slow down a little bit as well. And this is something I'm working on myself. Oopsie, I moved back on that one. Okay? Another potential reward changing intervention is to avoid the buffet effect. Do you know what I mean by the buffet effect? Yeah. So what are you thinking about when you have just taken your first plate of buffet food and you're sitting there eating it?
Your second plate.
Yeah. It's not about what's in front of you, it's about what's next. Especially if you're facing the buffet. Because then you're looking around. And problem with the buffets, besides just the sensory input of a buffet and all the colors and pretty things, the other issue with the buffet is there's a lot of different tastes. And the body has a harder time feeling satiated when there's a lot of different tastes. There's something called sensory-specific satiety, which I think you may have learned about before as well, which is when you're eating kind of similar foods, they tend to fill you up a lot more. Think of my friend Wendy, she likes to say, you know, I have my salt course, and then I need my sugar course, and then I need my salt course again, and then I need my sugar course, and then I need my other one. And when you keep bouncing around to those different ones, it's harder to feel that sensation of fullness, okay? Another big strategy with reward, you gotta shut the reward monster down. One way to shut the reward monster down is to have the hunger monster satisfied. So sometimes when we're really, really hungry, and then we finally get to eat something, we tend to maybe eat it a little bit too quickly, or eat until uncomfortably full. Maybe that's just me. And one of the ways to minimize rewards effect, or appetite's effect, is to shut down that hunger drive. Okay? So potential strategies for this, how? Potentially eating regular meals. There's different things work for different people. So it might mean eating foods more regularly throughout the day. When I was in my own path of behavior modification, what was really important for me is never being hungry. What was really important for me is always having something on me to fill me up. Because I knew that as soon as I got hungry, the monster takes over. Okay, that's my own personal experience, but that is something that is shown in the evidence as well. So eating regular meals, volumetrics, potentially eating more foods that have that satisfying effect, okay? And potentially fiber supplements as well can help with that hunger monster, okay? So there's another potential point of intervention. I do not get paid by any of these companies, no conflicts of interest here, but one of the benefits of certain types of these supplements is that they can help with regulating that hunger, okay? Which again is important to not let reward take over. Okay. Number 13, number 14, another type of medication. So I could have fit this in different areas, but it seems to fit best in reward. It kind of has, we're not actually sure of all of this new drugs, exactly its mechanism of action. Are you guys familiar with Contrave? No. So
expensive.
It's also expensive. Anyone can tell me how much it is?
$250 a month.
$250 a month. Okay, so, and I'm not sure if Extended Health covers this. So, yeah, so maybe not. So this one just came on the market in Canada, just got approved in Canada last year. So it's the newest obesity-related drug. And what one of its advantages is not only does it work on appetite suppression, it also works on reward. That's, we believe, part of its mechanism of action. Okay, so again, not for everyone. I'm not telling you guys what to do. It's really about picking and choosing what can work for you. Okay? Number 15. Something else that affects appetite. Are you aware of something called the Munchies? Yeah. Ever heard of this before? Well, now that it's legal, I can talk about it freely. I'm sure I could have talked about it freely before either. But marijuana does have, there are receptors in your appetite center that do sense, inner appetite centers that do sense marijuana, particular signaling molecule found in marijuana. And in particular, marijuana tends to increase the wanting of food via its effect on dopamine. Okay, so if this is an area for you to perhaps modulate, that's something to think about as well. Okay, it hurts me a little bit to glaze over this, and I don't want to glaze over this because these are very serious concerns. Okay, and maybe I shouldn't even have put it in one slide, but when it comes to the emotional aspects of eating, there's a lot of mental health related concerns that can again drive reward and can affect our drive to consume. So with anyone's individualized map of obesity, for some individuals, for some people, what's maybe driving the beast are some more of the emotional aspects and perhaps even depression in some cases. Okay? Anxiety might drive it as well. So if that's the case, that might, one potential suggestion is ideally talking to someone that can help you manage those symptoms. And when it comes to binge eating as well, this is something else that tends to be very reward focused. So if you're familiar with binge eating disorder, it's about 2 to 3.5% of Canadians who deal with binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder is known to have what we call loss of control eating, very reward-driven eating. I've dealt with binge eating disorder myself. I've also dealt with a version of bulimia nervosa myself. And I remember when I would be dealing with these things, I never understood why I couldn't just stop eating. My brain would be yelling, stop eating, stop eating, stop eating, and I'd be like, yeah,
One more.
you know, and I couldn't stop. And actually, we see loss of control eating in young adolescents, and we do see individuals that have this loss of control eating tend to have a higher risk for both binge eating disorder and bulimia nervosa later on. I'll tell you what helped me. There is a book that really helped me that I don't know if it interests you, called Overcoming Binge Eating. I'm not sure if that's kind of the
Yeah,
do you guys still have it? Okay.
suggested booklet.
Awesome. That one just, you know what was great about it? It was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Oh my gosh, other people deal with this as well. It is the most common eating disorder that exists. You know, and just to pick up some strategies or some understanding about it really helped me to get mine under control. Okay? So, I think it's Christopher Fairbaum. Fairbaum something. I think either Christopher or Michael Fairbaum. Fairbaum.
If you have the program manual, there's the suggested reading books, and
Yeah.
under binge eating behaviors, it's under there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome, good. Yeah, it was helpful for me, but again, different things work for different people. Okay? Stress seems to be something else. This is something else that feels weird to just glaze over as well, but stress seems to make reward more salient. It tends to make reward more satisfying. So one of the things that may help us ameliorate some of our reward drive is to manage our stress levels. Again, a bit of an anecdote, but my goodness, I cannot talk enough about the benefits of meditation in my own personal life. I was like, yeah, whatever. I sit there and stare, or for 5 minutes, what's this about? The clarity and the focus and the creativity and the peacefulness that I feel with regular practice of meditation of about 5 minutes a day is life-changing for myself. And it might be something you look into. A good, easy place to start is with Spotify. Look up guided meditation and find someone's voice that you like. If you don't like the voice or the sounds, pick someone else. You only have 5 minutes, find one that's 5 minutes. For me, I can't even, I know you're a meditator as well, I can't even tell you the improvement in my stress level and stress management with this, okay? Time management, another easier said than done thing, but that can be important for stress. And of course, exercise is a really important way to manage or moderate stress levels. And this isn't a talk about exercise, but I'll tell you my take-home message with exercise is you gotta find activities you enjoy and people you like doing it with. As far as what type, that's up to you. There's no rules. The best form of exercise for you is the type you're gonna keep doing. And if you hate a particular type of exercise, what's gonna happen? You're not gonna do it. It actually frustrates when people say, well, I'm lazy. Well, we're only lazy about things we don't like. So it's easy to be lazy about things you don't like. I'm gonna put off doing my taxes. I'm very lazy about doing my taxes because I absolutely hate doing that. Okay? But when you find things you enjoy, and it takes a while, it takes trial and error to find it, it makes a big difference. Okay? And then I'm a big fan of this one, stimulus control. One of the things that affects our reward center is what we see. And if we're opening our fridge up and it's everything that's ding, 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 all the hypothalamus, all the pleasure center driving things are there, it's hard to say no. So for instance, I don't keep ice cream in the house because I have no control. And I know this about myself. Judgment free, I know this. If I have it, it lasts a few days, that's it. Okay, chips, take them or leave them. And I know that there's some people looking at me like you're crazy. I can have chips in the cupboard for, well, maybe not that long, but a few weeks without worrying about it. But I'm aware of what kind of things I have less control over, and I try to control my stimuli. Okay. Another kind of aspect that's similar to this is something called environmental cueing. So instead of decreasing what you don't want to eat too much of, environmental cueing is keeping foods around that are good for you, that it cues you, so you see them, you want to eat it. Or laying your gym clothes out the night before, or bringing them with you. So there's that cue to again do that thing. Okay? And then the last strategy I want to offer is to ideally change our conversations in our minds and with each other in and around food and food-related behavior. So cognition, what we say about food, what we think about food, can affect our reward centers as well. Right? And if we're making a lot of rules about what we can and can't eat, and thinking about when do I get to eat again, when do I get to eat again, that can affect our reward. Okay? So changing our conversations, again, easier said than done. Okay? All of these things take time to implement, and that's why curiosity, judgment-free curiosity, trial and error, those are really critical to making effective changes. Okay? So someone's going to make another appearance again in this talk, and that's poop. Okay? So a little bit about talking about food. So I love this one too. When you wake up in the morning, Pooh, said Piglet, what's the first thing you say to yourself? What's for breakfast? Said Pooh. What do you say, Piglet? I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today, said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. That's the same thing. And I really like this quote because I identified it, But there's many exciting things in our lives. Food is exciting. I'm very pro-food. Very pro-food. And it's taken me years to finally find a good relationship with food that I'm still working out. I'm still trial and erroring my relationship with food. Okay? But I'm not here to tell you what not to eat and to have these negative relationships, but ideally to think about it as one of the many exciting things in our lives. So, some take-home messages, and then I'll summarize. Take-home message, where's the center of appetite regulation? The hypothalamus in the brain. You guys are even more specific in the brain, I like it. Okay? Our specific drive to eat is not influenced by one thing. And this thinking part of your brain, it's just along for the ride. It can affect things, but those drive centers are strong. So I think we can change our thinking brain. That does make an effect, but we also have to realize that other things affect appetite too. Okay? So my recommendation is to figure yourself out. Curiosity. I've given a lot of strategies today, and maybe even in this talk or in conversations with each other, from what you've learned in the clinic, you've learned your own strategies too. It's about pulling out things and building your toolkit of what's actually going to help build your best relationship with food and physical activity and your body. Okay? But to summarize some of the main points I said, okay, so appetite influencer, is it modifiable? Number one, genetics? No. Epigenetics? Not really, not at this stage of our lives. Okay? Fat cells? Yeah, by decreasing their size, but that's not very helpful, quite honestly. Microbiome? Yes, but we're not exactly sure. Okay, we're not there yet at a point where we understand this. Okay, digestive tract signals, yes. Okay, by eating, for instance, satiating foods, by trying to kind of tune in to what's going on here, trying to make our brain aware of what's going on in our digestive tract, eating more whole foods, those are important as well. Reward, yes, we can make a difference there too. And then environmental cues, another important area. So, I said, there's a rule in movies, and the rule is if you introduce a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the third. So the gun I introduced was that just eat less is terrible advice. That's what I said at the beginning. So let me summarize why. It focuses on blame without addressing the underlying causes. It's almost like dismissive. It's like, just eat less. Oh, it's just so simple. Okay? It does not take into account our differences. It also fails to understand our strengths or to build on our strengths. We're very weakness-focused in our society, and I'm kind of sick of that. But instead of focusing what we're not so good at, how about we focus on where we can make a difference and where we do have our strengths, okay? And it doesn't give us any usable tools as well, okay? And again, it fails to accept complexity. We each have our own individual map, okay? So just because something is complex doesn't mean we can't do anything about it. And hopefully some of the strategies I've offered you today can start you on your own, again, journey of building your toolkit and figuring out what's going to work best for you, okay? Final thoughts, replace judgment with curiosity. I've started saying that a lot lately and I really like it. Just like in all aspects of our life. It's almost like our brain goes straight to judgment. Instead of like, I wonder why, we're just really harsh with ourselves and others as well. This is not just about ourselves, but outwardly as well, okay? Everyone's situation and journey is different, and be kind to yourself. I think that's really, it's hard, it's not easy. You know, it's easy for some people, sure, but it's harder for others, you know, and you are where you're at, and that's the only place you can be, okay? So I hope you liked my presentation as much as my cat enjoyed it. So just a final note, I have been wanting to kind of put out some better message about food and physical activity and our relationships with our body, and this is something that I'm just starting right now. So if you'd like to follow along and offer suggestions or tell me what you're struggling with and I can maybe help answer some things in an evidence-based way, I would love if you follow me along. There's really not much on it now. There's one video on my YouTube page, but I'm promising one a week from here on in. And yeah, it would be great if you did that. And it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. It's a very special group you guys have here, and it's a blessing to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.